Before I start this video, Richard Gutierrez, you won the TT Artisan lens that I raffled off in my previous video review, so please reach out to me so I can send you that lens. Now, in today's video, I am reviewing the second full-frame anamorphic lens that I've ever reviewed on this channel. This time, it is not from Siri, it is from a company called Greatjoy. They sent me this 60mm full-frame anamorphic lens that's a 1.33x, along with an adapter that effectively makes this combo a 1.8x. And normally I would show you how this lens comes packaged in the box, but I just received unmarked white boxes because these are pre-production lenses. So let's start by giving you a tour around this new full-frame anamorphic lens. All right, so I'll start by saying that this combo, the lens with the adapter, is right about 4 pounds, just a little bit under. It's a crazy heavy setup. The lens itself without the adapter on the front is much more manageable. This 60mm anamorphic lens is very well constructed. It is all metal and glass, and it feels well built. Fit and finish is excellent. There are no issues in terms of build quality that I have seen over the last couple of weeks that I've spent with this lens. Starting at the rear, there is a metal mount. There are no electronic connections because this is an entirely manual lens. No weather sealing either. The first built-in gear ring is for the aperture, which moves from T2.9 to T16 with no distinct clicks, which is optimal for video shooters, so that is perfect. The ring is smooth to rotate with even resistance throughout the rotation. Around the bottom, there is a little screw with a mounting point if you wanted to use this lens with a tripod. Next is the focus ring, which features a signature yellow line around it, and again, built-in gear ring. There is a nicely printed focal distance scale here in meters with a nice cutout for it as well. It goes from a minimum focus of 0.7 of a meter to infinity in about 180 degrees of rotation. Very smooth rotation, I might add. The focus ring is solid and very precise, almost too precise, although for cinematography, I don't think that is an issue. Here, there is a giant 60mm FF anamorphic 1.33x label that is etched into the metal. Around the front, there is a grippy quasi-hood ring with a couple of screw holes and screws that attach to the adapter. The front lens element is flat and squared off at the sides, and the lens is labeled here as well. Now, this is only 1.33x as it sits, but that all changes with the arrival of this anamorphic adapter. This thing is so heavy, it is crazy. It's almost 2 pounds just by itself. Built like a tank, just solid all around, there is no plastic here. The rear features a 67mm screw-on filter thread, which turns the front into a 77mm filter thread. On the side, there is one giant focus ring that occupies most of the body. There is a focal distance scale here that goes from 0.7 of a meter to infinity in about 230 degrees of rotation if I had to guess. And the cool thing about this adapter is that you can use it on spherical lenses as well and turn those into a 1.35x anamorphic lens. Now, the focus ring here is not as smooth as the one on the lens body itself, but it is not bad. The problem is the resistance varies a bit through the rotation and there is a bit of friction noise. As you can see, the inside barrel extends quite a bit as you rotate the focus ring. Around the front, there is a round, flat circular lens element that is protecting a squared off lens element inside. On its own, this is a very interesting lens adapter that will appeal to a segment of creatives, as you can use this with various other lenses, including other anamorphic lenses. Combining it with the 60mm anamorphic lens from Greatjoy, however, and you get this almost 4-pound masterpiece that can be used to break bulletproof glass. All jokes aside, this is a very heavy setup that you could try to balance on a gimbal, but I really didn't even want to try it because I felt like it would break my gimbal. And so all of the samples that I got with it were handheld. Now, let's review really quickly the 3 basic elements that you are looking for when it comes to an anamorphic lens. The first thing is the squeeze factor. So basically you're getting more information crammed into the sensor. Thereby, when you de-squeeze it, you get natural black bars at the top and the bottom without actually cropping your image. The second thing is you get usually blue streaks of light, flares that are horizontal lines across the frame. With anamorphic lenses, you'll see that in a lot of movies from Hollywood. And the third last thing is the bokeh. Usually those are circular, long, and skinny bokeh when it comes to anamorphic lenses, especially the ones that they use in Hollywood. So given those three characteristics, let's see how this anamorphic lens performed. Okay, so in terms of aspect ratio, the lens on its own is a simple thing. It is a 1.33x anamorphic lens, so it is giving you just a tad more information from the sides. Not much though. When you de-squeeze, this is what you get. Natural black bars on the top and the bottom. Optically, this lens looks very good. It is very sharp, which is not typical with anamorphic lenses. The colors seem pretty natural to me as well, with no additional warm or cool color temperature added. These samples are all straight out of the camera with no color correction. This lens is easy to focus with the smooth focus ring, and there are no apparent distortions. Vignetting is not an issue. There is some chromatic aberration, but overall it's not bad at all. Now when you add the adapter, things get more interesting. Now you get a 1.8x aspect ratio, which is significantly wider. In fact, most Hollywood films are shot on anamorphic lenses that are 2x, which is even wider than this. Anyway, what is interesting here is that there is some significant vignetting on the edges. Basically, the adapter isn't wide enough to stay out of the frame at these close focus ranges, which is a bit of a disappointment. As you focus further away, this vignetting disappears, but if you are focusing up close, you still have to crop out these edges to make them look good, which in turn does wreck your aspect ratio a little bit. Even so, the image that you get with this lens and adapter is very wide at 1.8x. It is ultra cinematic, more so than just the lens by itself. Now, in terms of horizontal flare lines, this lens on its own produces flares that are subtle. They are not super pronounced and not super blue, such as what you get with series lenses. Instead, they are warm with some green highlights here and there. They are not just straight horizontal lines either. There are some ghost flares and circular flares that show up as well. It's not a bad thing, it's just a different, unique look. When you add the adapter, things get crazy. This is what I got with the series 50mm full frame anamorphic lens, and this is what I got with the Greatjoy and adapter setup. Now, the blue line flare isn't there, but instead you get a ton of warm flare. You get horizontal lines, a ghost horizontal line flare, some traditional spherical flare, and quasi sun stars, and some reflections on the very edges from the inside of the lens body itself. There is certainly a lot happening here. I think you have every type of flare you could possibly have in this sample here, truly unique. Now for scenes with limited lights, this isn't a problem. The flare doesn't distract too much, but when you have a lot of bright light sources, it starts to look a little chaotic at times. It's pretty cool. Alright, last up is bokeh. With the lens by itself, the bokeh is fine. It isn't perfectly smooth. There is a little bit of texture to the bokeh balls themselves as seen here, but overall the bokeh is good. It's not distracting, it's not busy, and unless you get them at the extreme edges where you do start to see a little bit of a teardrop effect, the bokeh in general is pretty solid. On its own, the lens doesn't give you those long skinny oval bokeh shapes though. With the adapter and the lens, that changes. Here at 1.8x, you start to get those oval bokeh balls and they look great. This isn't something you can get with a spherical normal lens. From a cinematic perspective, there are a lot of people who like this bokeh look. The series lens that I reviewed recently had kind of oval bokeh balls, but this setup has real ovals. Alright, so this lens is extremely well built, well put together. It gives you warm horizontal lines, gives you those long skinny bokeh, a very wide aspect ratio at 1.8x. But there are some issues. You already saw that you get some heavy vignetting with the adapter when you focus closely that you will have to adjust for. There is some chromatic aberration, and the flares are almost out of control with very bright light sources. This lens also has focus breathing, but I'll admit it's pretty well controlled. It's just slightly noticeable as you move the focus ring from one extreme to the other. It's a pretty easy lens for getting nice looking focus pulls. Another just practical annoyance with this lens and adapter combo is that it's not the easiest to use out in the wild. First, lining the adapter up with the lens is a challenge since there are no markers indicating where it should meet up prior to using the little thumb screws to affix it to the lens body. I had to use a flashlight and eyeball it and look at the sides to see if the text lined up correctly to make sure that I didn't get weird distortions in my shot. Second, the way this lens adapter works is you set your lens focus to infinity and you use the ring on the adapter to focus, which is fine, but the problem lies in the fact that you are carrying around a 4-pound setup that is way too easy to accidentally bump the focus ring on the lens body, and then you really struggle trying to nail focus, only to find out later that your focus ring was not set to infinity as it should have been. All of that aside, this is a remarkably good lens. It's good in a way that an anamorphic lens should be. It's different and weird and gives you those 3 basic aspects that make an anamorphic lens so sought after. It gives you the aspect ratio, the flare, and the bokeh. It's also very nice and sharp, as I mentioned previously. In fact, I shot everything wide open at T2.9 and I never felt like I needed to stop this lens down to improve the optics. And while I do miss the characteristic blue flare lines, this Greatjoy is made for a different type of storytelling, maybe for a movie or short film in which blue lines simply wouldn't fit or would be too distracting. It has a place in the world of budget full-frame anamorphic lenses, and I am sure that this is just one of many future anamorphic lenses that we will see from Greatjoy. And I think the cool thing about this release is that you don't have to buy both of these things together, the lens with the adapter. You can buy just the adapter or just the lens, or buy a package with both of them, because I think that the adapter is going to appeal to a subset of other people, perhaps people who own the series line of lenses that really don't get you that super de-squeeze anamorphic look. They're only 1.33x. When you add this to that and you get 1.8x, it's a much more cinematic look, I think. If you are looking to expand your creativity by adding an anamorphic lens to your lens collection, then I certainly would recommend that you check this thing out. It was a lot of fun to use, although my arm is a little bit sore from carrying around a 4-pound setup. That is going to be it for my review of the Greatjoy 60mm anamorphic lens and the adapter that comes with it. As always, I'll have some links down in the description below. I believe this lens and the adapter are both on Kickstarter. You could check those out as far as specs and purchase them if you so desire. Let me know down in the comments what your guys' thoughts are regarding anamorphic lenses in general. Are you getting into that for video work? I have a buddy of mine who's all about them recently, but I'm not so all about them as of yet, but maybe in the future. As always, thank you so much for all of your comments, all of your likes, and your support. Special thank you to Greatjoy for sending this lens and combo adapter thing for me to review. It's been a lot of fun to use over the last couple of weeks. And I think that's going to be it. Stay tuned for more. Have a great day. Thank you. Bye-bye.